Hey everyone, welcome back. Last time we were together, we were talking about classical conditioning, and today we are going to talk about operant conditioning. So operant conditioning is another type of behaviorism, and more specifically, it's another type of what we call associative learning. With classical conditioning, the association that takes place is associating two stimuli, such as a bell with food or a rat with a really loud sound. Operant conditioning, it is still associative learning, but instead what you are associating is some kind of action with a consequence, a cause and effect, if you will. And so we're going to dive into how operant conditioning works today. And we are going to start with this guy named Edward Thorndike. And what Edward Thorndike did was Edward Thorndike took these cute little cats and he put them in these puzzle boxes. And the cats were required to pull on levers and push on strings and step on these pedals and do a number of different things to essentially escape the box, escape this cage that they were put in. And what Thorndike learned is that we learn from our consequences. If we are rewarded for a particular behavior, we are more likely to do that behavior. And if we are punished for a behavior, we're less likely to do it, right? Reinforced behavior is more likely to be done again. Punished behavior is less likely to be chosen in the future. He calls this the law of effect, right? We learn from our consequences. We kind of hinted at this early in the year when we were learning about behaviorism. If you hang out with a group of people that make you feel good, make you laugh, you're more likely to hang out with those people again. If you have to spend time around people who make you feel crummy, don't make you feel very good, then you're less likely to want to be with those people. And so we learn from the consequences that we make. Rewarded behaviors will increase, punished behaviors will decrease. So this is based off of Thorndike's theory of the law of effect. And then this man named B.F. Skinner is going to take this and he's going to take it a little further through what we call operant conditioning. And so I want to explain to you this idea of what's known as either an operant conditioning chamber or more famously a Skinner box named after B.F. Skinner. And so you can see here Skinner was known for working with pigeons, but he also worked with lab rats and things like that, but famously with pigeons. And we have this pigeon on the right hand side who has learned to do some really fascinating things. For example, that pigeon might learn how to spin around in a circle, or maybe that pigeon learns how to jump up and down, or maybe that pigeon learns how to peck at a little green disc and not peck at a little red disc. Well, how does that pigeon learn how to do those things? Through operant conditioning, through law of effect, through rewards and punishments. So I've got this kind of graphic here, and if you'll work with me, imagine for a moment that we want to teach this really sad looking rat to push down on this lever, to push down on this bar here. Well, what we can do is a number of different things. We can, for example, have this rat learn that every time he hits the lever, food comes out. He's rewarded for it, right? And so he's just hanging out in the Skinner box, just doing rat stuff. And then he leans up against that little bar there and he realizes, oh, if I lean up against this, food comes out. And so we can very quickly teach this rat to push that bar because he's rewarded for it. Or maybe, see that speaker there? Maybe what we do is we play an incredibly loud, annoying sound on that speaker, just a really high pitch, awful, painful sound on that speaker, and that rat hates it, and it's running around trying to escape, and it bumps into that bar, and sure enough, the sound stops. Well, we can teach that rat to push that bar by taking away something painful. And so there's a number of different ways that we can try to teach this rat to do things. Some of them may result in some kind of rewarding consequence, and maybe some are some kind of punishing consequences. We'll have to get to those here in just a moment. So how does it work? Well, we want to recall that we can break operant conditioning down into either reinforcement or punishment. They're both consequences, and it's a mistake that some students make is we naturally think consequence is bad. Consequence is just a result, right? It's an effect. So some consequences would result in reinforcement. So what we have with reinforcement is we are trying to support a target behavior. It's something that will make that target behavior more likely to occur. And so imagine for a moment that we want you to have really great grades on your report card. Well, we can do a couple of different things to try to reinforce, support that target behavior. So the target behavior is we want to have all A's on the report card. Well, maybe what we could do is we could give you stuff. We could give you something that you desire to try to make it more likely that you'll get those grades. So maybe we give you a bag of M&Ms. You're high school kids. Maybe that's perfect. Maybe you want some cold hard cash, right? If we are giving you something to try to increase the likelihood that you will accomplish the target behavior, it's what we call positive reinforcement. It's reinforcement because it's making the target behavior more likely to occur. It's positive not because it's something desirable. What makes it positive is the addition of something. I'm giving you candy. I'm giving you money, right? If I am giving you something, that's what makes it positive. Now, the reality is I can take stuff away that still reinforces your behavior. I can take things away from you to make it more likely you'll do something. And so some students might jump to the idea of being grounded or something like that. Well, that sounds punishing. If I'm trying to make sure you get all A's, well, why am I going to punish you if you're doing a nice job? So instead, let's view this differently. There are plenty of things in your world that you maybe don't like, that you don't want, that are undesirable. I could take away something undesirable to reinforce your behavior, to make the target behavior more likely to occur. And when that happens, it's what we call negative reinforcement. And so, for example, if you get an A on a test, well, maybe I can take away your lowest quiz grade, right? If you get all A's on your report card, maybe you don't have to do chores for a week, something you didn't want to do anyway. And so this is what we call negative reinforcement, and it is the most popular AP psychology question. The reason why it's a popular AP psychology question is because it sounds bad. Negative reinforcement sounds awful. People think, oh, I don't want to get negative reinforcement. It sounds like you're going to electrocute me or something. No, no, no. Negative reinforcement. That word negative does not mean bad. That word negative means taking away. And in this case, we're taking away something that you don't want anyway. I had a professor in college that if we had perfect attendance, we didn't have to take the final exam. We could if we wanted to, but if we liked our grade where it was before the final exam, we didn't have to take it. It was a perfect example of negative reinforcement. The professor wanted to make sure that we came to class every single day. And so if you had perfect attendance, that was the target behavior, he would take away something we didn't even want, which was the final. So be careful with negative reinforcement. Reinforcement means a behavior is more likely to occur, and it's negative because you're taking something away. Now, some reinforcers happen naturally, and some reinforcers we have to teach. And so if we're looking at this idea of, well, what's happening naturally and what do we have to teach, kind of sounds a little bit like classical conditioning, then it gets into, both are good, and they strengthen behavior. It gets into what we call primary or conditioned reinforcers. Sometimes conditioned reinforcers are referred to as secondary reinforcers. The whole point of this slide is simply getting you to think, do you need to learn that this is reinforcement? If it is 100 degrees outside and you were asked to mow the lawn and you're out there mowing the lawn and you're sweating like crazy, well, if someone walks out there with an ice cold glass of water, you will find that rewarding. That's what we call a primary reinforcer. So primary reinforcers are things like food and water and freedom from pain and things like that. Primary reinforcers work really well with animals and with young children, right? If I'm trying to train my dog to sit, then the best thing I can give my dog is food. If I'm trying to train my children to be potty trained, the best thing I can give them is candy. Because the other type of reinforcer is what we call conditioned reinforcers or secondary reinforcers, and you have to be taught that these are something desirable. Like trophies, like money. If I am trying to train my dog to sit by saying, I'm going to give you a trophy if you learn to sit, it's not going to work, right? Because the dog hasn't learned that he should desire to have the world's best dog trophy. If I look at my young child and say, hey, I really want you to go to the bathroom in the toilet, and if you do, I'm going to give you $20, it's not going to work. They don't realize they could use that money to go buy lots and lots of candy. It doesn't work that way. They're motivated by primary reinforcers like candy, secondary or conditioned reinforcers like money. It doesn't work. It works for you and I because we have learned to value those things. So that's the idea of reinforcement, right? Reinforcement is going to make sure a target behavior is more likely to occur. Then we have punishment. And punishment is going to make a target behavior less likely to occur. So maybe instead of the student who's doing really well in school and getting all A's, well, maybe what's happening is they're getting a lot of poor grades, and we want that behavior to stop. We want that behavior to go down. Well, there's some different things that we could do to try to make that behavior go down. And just like with reinforcement, where it might add stuff or take things away, well, with punishment, we can add things and we can take things away. Although we don't have corporal punishment at Park Hill, we're not allowed to hit students over the wrist with a ruler or anything. Positive punishment is the idea of adding stimulus to make a behavior less likely to occur. Positive punishment sounds like an oxymoron. You're thinking, how on earth is punishment positive? Positive doesn't equal good. Positive means the addition of something. So an electric shock or a spanking or whatever it may be, if I am giving you something you don't desire. You're not doing very well in class. Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to give you a bunch of extra worksheets. You don't want that, but I want your behavior to go down. I want that behavior of doing poorly in school to decrease, so I'm going to give you something that you don't want. That's the idea of positive punishment. And then just like we have negative reinforcement, we also have negative punishment. Negative punishment is a very popular form of punishment. What's happening? We're taking stuff away from you. We're taking away that which you desire in an attempt to decrease behavior. You're not doing very well in school. Well, guess what? We're taking away the car keys. We're taking away the cell phone. We're taking away TV time, the Xbox, whatever. Negative punishment. It's not negative because it's bad. It's negative because we're taking away something desirable in an attempt to decrease the behavior. Now, this last slide here, again, positive does not mean good, negative does not mean bad. This last slide here I think is worth getting in your notes. It's kind of a nice little grid to try to figure out what type of conditioning are we discussing. If you are adding something good, if you're adding something desirable, then we would call this positive punishment. And the result is behavior should increase. If I give you a sticker on the top of your paper, I'm saying, good job, keep that up. I want you to continue writing good papers, right? And in that case, putting an A on the top of a paper, I think, is that primary or secondary reinforcer. Well, that's a secondary or a conditioned reinforcer. You have learned that you desire an A on your paper and not an F on your paper, right? That's something we have to learn over time. If you are adding bad stuff, this is what we call positive punishment. It's positive because you are adding something. That's what this row has in common. But it's punishment because we want that behavior to go down, right? We're going to give you more chores. Because you did something we don't like, because you snuck out of the house, I'm now going to give you a bunch of chores that you need to do. My hope is that that behavior decreases by adding something you don't want. Well, what happens if we take away the good stuff? I'm going to take away the good stuff. Well, that's negative punishment. It's negative because we're taking it away, and we're taking it away in hopes of decreasing behavior. Again, you snuck out of the house, so we're taking away TV time. And then lastly, sometimes we will take away the bad stuff, take away things you don't want. So, hey, great news. You did really well. You don't have to do your chores next week. We do this, again, in hopes of increasing behavior. Now, the final thing that I will say for this lecture, sometimes the target behavior just is going to result in needing to have punishment. If you have someone, if my son hits my daughter, he needs to be punished for it, right? However, there are lots of behaviors, so many behaviors in this world that we can attempt to mold and condition through either reinforcement or punishment. And in those situations, research has shown that reinforcement works so much better. Let me give you a couple quick examples. You get a brand new cute little puppy dog, and you want that puppy dog to go to the bathroom outside and not inside on your carpet. Well, you could handle this a couple of different ways. You could punish that dog every time it went to the bathroom in the house, rub its nose in it and yell at it and bop it on the nose. Or you could reinforce that puppy every time it goes to the bathroom outside with pets and kisses and little doggy treats. And we have found that reinforcing going to the bathroom outside for a dog, right, is much more effective than punishing the behavior of going to the bathroom inside. Think about attendance policies at school. Well, what's our target behavior? Our target behavior is you're here, that you're present, that you show up as much as you possibly can. But the reality is we don't really reinforce that, but we will punish it if you're not doing it, right? And so we punish you if you don't show up to class on time, or if you're late, you're tardy, whatever, then we'll give you punishment. We'll give you, ISS and detentions and things like that. But rarely do we offer any kind of reinforcement for students that have great attendance, that show up every day on time. Imagine if for a moment we said, all right, starting next semester, if you show up to class every day on time, then you don't have to take your finals. Or maybe we cut you a check for $100. I don't know. But I do know that if we reinforce that behavior, we would likely have better results. And so if it's possible to choose between reinforcement or punishment to try to get the same target behavior, reinforcement tends to be best. So hope that makes sense. Lots of little terms there for you. As always, email me if you have any questions, and best of luck.